Have you ever wondered how some people are born with features so incredibly rare, they leave even the world's best doctors completely without answers?
I saw how my personhood got replaced by my condition. It was like people couldn't see or put forward the person first.
Across the world, there are extraordinary Black people whose breathtaking appearances, astonishing genetic conditions, and powerful life stories have left millions completely speechless. From 1 in a billion traits to staggering medical mysteries, here are 12 exceptional Black people who will leave you completely speechless. Number 12. Larae Perkins. For most girls, puberty brings changes they expect. But when Larae Perkins reached puberty, her body began changing in a way that would haunt her for years. At just 12 years old, thick facial hair began growing across her face. Full sideburns appeared. Then came a beard. Larae had absolutely no idea why this was happening to her. That confusion soon became something much worse. As the hair became harder to hide, strangers began staring. Some made cruel comments and even questioned whether she was really a woman. Simple things like shopping or meeting someone new became frightening because Larae never knew who would stare at her face or what they might say. And the worst part was that she still did not fully understand what was happening inside her body. Eventually, she got an answer. Larae had hirsutism, a condition that causes women to grow thick, dark hair on areas such as the face, chest, and back. In her case, it was connected to polycystic ovary syndrome, or PCOS, which can cause higher levels of hormones called androgens. Those hormones were driving the unusual hair growth. Larae had experienced symptoms since puberty, but interestingly, she said she did not learn that her excessive hair growth even had a name until she was in her 30s. For years, Larae struggled with embarrassment, shame, and feeling completely different. Removing the hair was another enormous problem on its own. Shaving and waxing could leave razor bumps, dark marks, and extremely damaged skin, while the hair would simply grow back again. Then Larae reached a point that changed everything. She stopped trying to hide her condition. Instead of continuing to fight her own face, she allowed her beard to grow naturally, and she accepted the reflection staring back at her. She went even further. After years of people questioning whether facial hair somehow made her less of a woman, Larae created Yes, I Am a Girl, using the same painful experience to encourage other women living with facial hair to stop hiding themselves. The beard that once brought Larae years of terror became something she refused to be ashamed of anymore. Strangers could stare. They could whisper. They could question her. The beard that once brought Larae years of shame eventually became a test of courage. And for other women fighting the same battle, she became proof that being different does not mean living ashamed. Number 11. Meki Alante Lucky. Sometimes one photograph can completely change the direction of someone's life. For Meki Alante Lucky, that photograph was not taken by a fashion photographer. It was taken inside a police station. In 2016, Meki was arrested in North Carolina, and his mugshot was posted online. But something completely unexpected happened. Millions of people became fascinated by his appearance. Meki had one bright blue eye and one dark brown eye, along with a noticeable scar across his face. The difference between his eyes comes from a rare condition called complete heterochromia, where each eye has a completely different color. This happens because the two eyes contain different amounts of melanin, the natural pigment that gives our eyes their color. The condition is usually harmless, but it made Meki impossible to forget. Then, that mugshot reached exactly the right person. Demanti O'Brien, the founder of St. Clair Modeling, saw Mackey's photograph online and immediately believed he had the face of a model. There was just one problem. He had no idea who Mackey was. Eventually, he tracked Mackey down through Instagram and contacted him. Soon afterward, Mackey was flown to Atlanta for his first professional test shoot. The shoot went so well that O'Brien signed him to St. Clair Modeling. He went on to walk for other major fashion names, including Philip Plain and Laquan Smith, and appeared in CR Fashion Book and other fashion editorials. Today, Mackey Alante Lucky is recognized as one of the most visually distinctive faces in fashion. Number 10. Ralph Souffrant. Growing up, Ralph Souffrant hated the very feature that would one day make the fashion world stop and stare. His skin was covered in dense, striking freckles, and as a child, other kids made sure he never forgot how different he looked. Ralph was born in Haiti, but when he turned 9, his family moved to Brooklyn, New York. The new country brought a completely different kind of pain. At school, Ralph's freckles made him an easy target. Classmates mocked his appearance and called him ugly. Ralph later admitted that as a child, he hated his skin. Then his life took an astonishing turn when photographer Aaron Taylor spotted him in a Brooklyn park. Taylor immediately saw something striking in Ralph and knew he had the look of a model. He photographed him and eventually helped create an Instagram account for him. Suddenly, the face Ralph had spent years wanting to hide was being seen by thousands of people. Ralph decided to chase this newly found dream seriously. He did not even have a modeling agent at first. He searched for casting calls himself and emailed casting directors from his personal Gmail account, trying to get himself into fashion shows. Somehow, it started working. He booked shows on his own, including Gypsy Sport. Then, in 2016, Ralph had one absolutely insane day. He signed with Request Model Management, and that very same day, he booked Kanye West's Yeezy Season 3 show. Just like that, the young man who had been mocked relentlessly because of his skin was standing inside one of the biggest fashion events of the year at Madison Square Garden. And that was only the beginning. Ralph went on to land major work with brands, including Calvin Klein, Nordstrom, Equinox, Ivy Park, Fendi, Tiffany & Co., and Tommy Hilfiger. Today, Ralph Souffrant uses his platform to inspire people to accept themselves. He speaks openly about embracing what makes you different, instead of feeling ashamed or desperately trying to hide it, giving hope to young people struggling with bullying and insecurity about their bodies. His story is definitely a powerful reminder that our greatest differences can become our greatest strengths. Number 9. Pamela Ouattara. Meet Pamela Odom Ouattara, a woman with a huge personality and an even more unforgettable appearance. By the time Pamela was just 14, her breasts were already unusually large. Then something happened that worried her family even more. One breast started growing much bigger than the other. The difference became so obvious that her mother would put foam inside one side of Pamela's bra before she went to school, just to make both sides look even. Eventually, her worried mother took her to a doctor. After examining Pamela, he assured them that nothing was wrong, and that the other breast should eventually catch up as she continued growing. And thankfully, it did. Within months, the difference became less obvious until both sides eventually looked even again. But the size itself never stopped being a problem. At school, Pamela struggled badly with the attention. Other students mocked her and made cruel comments about why her breasts were so large. She became so embarrassed that she would sometimes stay indoors rather than face people. And as she got older, carrying breasts that heavy came with physical problems too. Pamela described herself as wearing a 44D, but she later discovered she had been struggling without the proper bra fit and support. The weight became so uncomfortable that she suffered serious pain around her back and shoulders. At one point, the pain became bad enough that she even considered breast reduction surgery. She eventually went to be professionally measured and fitted for a bra that properly supported her size. But Pamela's attitude toward her body changed completely as she grew older. Instead of hiding the feature that once made school so miserable, she embraced it. She became a model and video vixen, appearing in music videos and building attention around the appearance she once struggled so hard to accept. And despite once considering reduction because of the pain, Pamela later said she had grown proud of her breasts and did not want them becoming smaller. Number 8. Prince Randian. Prince Randian was born without arms or legs in 1871, at a time when modern medicine and accessibility barely existed. For a child with a condition this severe, even surviving childhood could be incredibly difficult. But Randian did far more than survive. He learned to do things that left crowds staring in disbelief. Randian was born in Demerara, British Guiana, with an extremely rare condition called tetra-amelia syndrome, which causes a person to be born without all 4 limbs. The condition can also affect major organs, and in severe cases, babies do not survive. Somehow, Randian beat those odds. He remained healthy enough to live for 63 years. Then, at just 18 years old, his life took a dramatic turn. Famous showman P.T. Barnum brought Randian to the United States, where he would spend the next 45 years performing for stunned audiences. Randian became known by names like the human caterpillar and the living torso. He wore a tight one-piece outfit and moved across the stage by twisting and pushing himself forward using only his hips and shoulders. But simply watching him move was nothing compared to what he could do next. Randian could write and paint by controlling a pen or brush with his mouth. He could shave himself by fixing a razor into a wooden block and moving his face across the blade. And most famously, he could take a cigarette, roll it, and light it using only his mouth. His control was so extraordinary that the trick was captured in the 1932 MGM film Freaks. But even that was not his most unbelievable skill. Randian learned carpentry. Using his mouth and shoulders to control his tools, he built the wooden box where he kept his performance equipment. He cut and assembled the wood, painted the box, and even fitted a lock onto it himself. And Randian's abilities went far beyond his performances. He spoke 4 languages: Hindi, English, French, and German. He married a woman known as Princess Sarah, and together they raised 5 children, 4 daughters, and a son. He continued performing for decades. Then, on December 19, 1934, Randian gave another performance at Sam Wagner's 14th Street Museum in New York. Shortly afterward, he collapsed. Randian suffered a heart attack and died that same day at 63 years old. His life proved something far more powerful than any circus performance ever could. Physical limitations may change what someone has to overcome, but they do not decide how far that person can go. Number 7. The Conjoined Twin Brothers. While traveling through a remote village, a photographer expected to capture beautiful landscapes and everyday life. But instead, she came across something she never expected. 2 conjoined twin brothers whose extraordinary appearance immediately caught her attention. Curious about their story, she approached them and asked if she could take their photograph. They agreed. That single image became far more than just another photograph. It became a powerful reminder that behind every extraordinary appearance is a real person, a real life filled with hope and courage, and in the case of these 2 brothers, a bond almost impossible for the rest of us to fully understand. Number 6. Thando Hopa. Thando Hopa was born with albinism, a genetic condition that means the body produces very little melanin, the pigment that gives color to the skin, hair, and eyes. Thando had very pale skin and light hair, and albinism also affected her eyesight. But the hardest part wasn't what her condition did to her body. It was how other people treated her because of it. Growing up, Thando faced cruel comments, bullying, and discrimination, and outside the school gates, the reality could become far more frightening. In parts of Africa, dangerous myths have claimed that the body parts of people with albinism possess magical powers. Those beliefs have led to people with albinism being attacked and even killed. Thando was growing up knowing that looking different could bring far more than nasty words. But instead of allowing other people's ignorance to decide what she could become, Thando went in a direction nobody looking at that frightened schoolgirl might have expected. She studied law. She earned her law degree from the University of the Witwatersrand and joined South Africa's National Prosecuting Authority, where she became one of the youngest prosecutors in her intake. She wasn't simply sitting behind a desk either. She handled serious criminal cases. Then, in 2012, her life suddenly took another turn. South African fashion designer Gert Johan Coetzee noticed Thando and encouraged her to try modeling. It was a world completely different from the courtroom. But she took the chance. And before long, the appearance people had once used to make her feel like she didn't belong was being placed directly in front of cameras. Then came 2019. Thando made history. She became the first person with albinism to appear on the cover of Vogue Portugal. She also became the first Black South African to appear in the famous Pirelli calendar, standing alongside internationally known stars. What had begun as one unexpected invitation into modeling had grown into a global career. But Thando didn't leave her old fight behind when the cameras arrived. Today, she is known as a model, lawyer, human rights advocate, entrepreneur, and public speaker. She has used her platform to challenge discrimination against people with albinism and push back against the dangerous beliefs that have harmed people who look like her. Number 5. Orlando Sorrell. Orlando Sorrell was just 10 years old when a freak accident on a baseball field changed his brain in a way scientists still struggle to explain. In 1979, he was playing baseball with friends in Virginia when a ball slammed into the left side of his head. Orlando crashed to the ground, but after a few minutes, he got back up, brushed himself off, and continued playing. He didn't even go to the hospital. It looked like he had gotten incredibly lucky. Then, something bizarre started happening. Not long after the accident, Orlando realized something almost impossible had happened to his memory. He could remember every single day of his life since that baseball hit him in the head. Not just the important days. Give him a date, and he could tell you what day of the week it was, what he wore, what he ate, what the weather was like, even what television shows were on. Ordinary days that everyone else would have forgotten were still sitting inside Orlando's memory in incredible detail. And that raised one huge question. What had that baseball truly done to his brain? Doctors eventually linked Orlando's ability to what is often described as acquired savant syndrome, where an extraordinary ability appears after an injury or other event affecting the brain. Orlando became especially known for his incredible calendar calculations and autobiographical memory. The strangest part was that he hadn't spent years training himself to do this. The ability appeared after that blow to his head. Researchers began studying him, trying to understand how someone could apparently gain such an unusual ability after an accident. Orlando could be given dates stretching years into the past, and rapidly connect them with the correct day of the week and memories from his own life. Orlando carried that ability into adulthood and became one of the unusual cases studied by researchers trying to understand savant abilities and human memory. He never planned for any of it. He was simply a child playing baseball when one bad throw changed what his brain could do. And decades later, scientists still don't have a complete explanation for exactly how that single blow unlocked it. Number 4. Stan Larkin. For 555 days, Stan Larkin lived without the human heart he was born with. Instead, the machine keeping him alive followed him everywhere he went. Packed inside a backpack he carried 24 hours a day. And somehow, with that backpack attached to his body, Stan even managed to play basketball again. His heart problems had started years earlier. At just 16, Stan suddenly collapsed while playing basketball. Doctors discovered he had arrhythmogenic right ventricular dysplasia, or ARVD, a serious genetic condition that damages the heart and can cause dangerous abnormal heart rhythms. Over the years, Stan's heart became weaker and weaker until even a defibrillator was no longer enough to protect him. Eventually, he needed a heart transplant. But there was one terrifying problem. There wasn't a donor heart waiting for him. Stan's own heart was failing, and nobody knew whether a matching donor would arrive before it was too late. So in November 2014, doctors at the University of Michigan did something extraordinary. They removed Stan's failing heart and replaced it with a total artificial heart. 2 tubes came out through his chest and connected to a portable machine called the Freedom Driver. It weighed about 13.5 pounds, used air pressure to power his artificial heart, and could be carried inside a backpack. That backpack became Stan's lifeline. He could not simply take it off. The machine inside was helping keep blood pumping through his body. But unlike older equipment that could keep patients trapped in a hospital, this portable system allowed Stan to go home. He could spend time with his children, walk around outside, and even return to the basketball court. He became the first patient in the Midwest to leave the hospital using the device. And then, the waiting began. 1 month became another. Then, another. Stan lived like this for 555 days, carrying the machine everywhere while waiting for the phone call that could finally give him a human heart again. In May 2016, that call finally came. A matching donor heart had been found, and doctors successfully transplanted it into Stan's chest. After nearly a year and a half attached to the backpack that had kept him alive, he could finally leave it behind. And suddenly, the smallest things felt enormous. Stan could shower normally again. He could hold his children without tubes and a machine between them. And for the first time in 555 days, he could walk out the door without carrying the device that had been keeping him alive on his back. Number 3. Kimani Ng'anga Marug. Most people walk into first grade when they are 5 or 6 years old. Kimani Ng'anga Maruge walked in at 84. There he was in a Kenyan primary school, sitting beside children nearly 80 years younger than him, learning the alphabet and basic mathematics for the first time. And he wasn't visiting. He had enrolled as a student. Maruge was believed to have been born around 1920, when Kenya was still under British colonial rule. For poor native Kenyans like him, getting a proper education was extremely difficult. He grew up without learning to read and write, and adulthood brought something far more brutal. During the 1950s, Maruja became involved in the Mau Mau uprising against British colonial rule. He was imprisoned and later described suffering terrible treatment while in detention. Decades passed. Maruj grew older, but one thing he had been denied as a child never stopped bothering him: He still wanted an education. Then, in 2003, Kenya introduced free primary education. Suddenly, the opportunity Marug had missed as a little boy was finally available. There was just one obvious problem. He was already in his 80s. Marug didn't care. On January 12, 2004, he enrolled at Kapken Duiwo Primary School near Eldoret. He sat in a classroom surrounded by children young enough to be his great-grandchildren and started right from the beginning. Letters, numbers, reading, mathematics. At 84 years old, Maruja was finally learning the things he had waited almost his entire life to learn. His determination quickly won over the school, and by 2005, his fellow students had even elected him head boy. But what happened next took his story far beyond that little classroom. In 2005, Maruja boarded an airplane for the first time in his life and flew all the way to New York to address a United Nations summit. Think about that journey. A man who had entered first grade at 84 was now standing before world leaders, arguing that education should be available to everyone, no matter how poor they were or how old they had become. And even after that, life wasn't finished testing him. During Kenya's post-election violence in 2007 and 2008, Maruj lost his home and ended up living in a displacement camp. Still, he refused to abandon his education. He kept his books with him and continued learning whenever he could. Maruja died in 2009 after battling stomach cancer. He was believed to be around 89 years old, but by then, the elderly first grader from Kenya had become known around the world. His life later inspired the 2010 film The First Grader. Maruja had been denied an education when he was young, so at 84, he simply went back and claimed it. And he kept learning almost until the end of his life. Number 2. Felix Arena, King Fella. Felix Arena, better known as King Fella, is a Kenyan model who became famous for one unbelievable feature. His dreadlocks stretch around 10 meters, or 32 feet long. That's roughly the length of a city bus. And unlike a rare medical condition or something he was born with, Felix deliberately grew his hair this long over many years and turned it into the look that would make him famous. Managing all that enormous length can be difficult. When he goes out or works on creative projects, he sometimes needs assistance to help carry and arrange the dreadlocks. Otherwise, they can trail along behind him. Something as simple as moving around in public becomes a job involving more than one person. And then comes washing them. Felix relies on experienced hairdressers to help wash and maintain the dreadlocks. With that much hair, keeping everything clean, neat, and properly styled is nothing like an ordinary trip to the barber. It takes work, time, and help just to maintain the look that made him famous. But all that effort achieved exactly what Felix wanted. In a fashion industry where thousands of people are fighting to be remembered, Felix created a look that is extremely difficult to mistake for anyone else's. The hair may be heavy, awkward, and difficult to manage, but for King Fella, it became far more than a hairstyle. It became his signature. Number 1. Chanel Tapper. Chanel Tapper holds a Guinness World Record for something you definitely don't see every day. She has the world's longest tongue on a living woman. It measures an incredible 3.8 inches, or 9.75 centimeters, from the tip of her tongue to her top lip. Chanel knew from a young age that her tongue was unusually long. But for years, she had no idea just how unusual it actually was. Then she was officially measured, and the result confirmed it. But having that much extra tongue came with some ridiculous abilities. She can easily touch her nose and chin with it. But those are the easy tricks. She has used her tongue to flip over cups and has even pulled individual blocks from a Jenga tower without using her hands. Unsurprisingly, those tricks started attracting serious attention. Chanel became known around the world, built a large online following, and turned the feature that made her physically different into something she genuinely enjoyed showing off. And rather than spending her life feeling embarrassed about all the staring, Chanel embraced it. Something that could easily have made her insecure became the very thing she proudly shows the world.